Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. So happy to be here with you today.
Amazing. So, we are going to talk about something really great today. Michelle and I share this mutual respect and love for the central nervous system, mindset, energy, the consciousness, and how this really relates to fertility.
So, in general, I guess my own journey going through changing my careers and going into natural medicine, one of the things that I did notice, even with what we do, is that acupuncture, when learning about it, it really treats also the mind, spirit, the mind, body, and that organs, a lot of things in our bodies impact the mind. So, we understand it in a little bit more of a holistic lens and perspective, but then kind of in my own nerdy times, I like reading books and following Joe Dispenza's work and many different other work. Especially, I was actually really influenced by the book The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, and that was my first introduction into the power of your mind. And when I applied a lot of that, I noticed firsthand, which is why I like to teach it now, that your mindset and your thoughts actually do impact your body, your life, really so much. And I really do believe that we have so much power. I know you and I talked about that, like just how much power we have as humans, but they don't teach that in school. They don't teach you just how much your mind has power over your body. And one of the things I always like to give as an example is like if you imagine, and I do this in workshops sometimes, like imagine squeezing a lemon into your mouth and just imagine like the taste and like the juiciness and your, saliva. And most of the time, people just imagining that will start to salivate. And I do that also with people in my office. They'll start to salivate. And I'm like, did you salivate? And it doesn't work for every single person, but I'm like, okay, did you have a lemon? Why did you salivate? Because you thought about a lemon. So your body, that's a perfect example. Your body had a physiological response to a thought. So that is a perfect example and a perfect, what's the word? Proof that your body responds to your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that technique. I learned that when I was learning NLP and hypnotherapy. And so yeah, absolutely that connection. That's a wonderful way to get people really to see the connection with the mind and the body. And I often talk to people about that, if we're talking about fertility, that your uterus and ovaries are listening to what the mind is telling it. You are very powerful, like you had actually just stated. That's a really powerful statement. I know that you talk with your clients a lot about feeling safe. And
Mhm.
just, that is something that I'm sure that listeners listening right now to Fertile Frequencies, to this podcast, this episode, that during fertility that you can really feel that you are not safe and not trusting
Mhm.
your body. And how would you elaborate on that? Just kind of give us more idea of what you talk with your clients about and also kind of what your techniques are too.
Yeah, so ultimately, I think one of the biggest reasons why acupuncture is so powerful, just one of the explanations is that it regulates the nervous system. And your nervous system, you have your central nervous system, you have your peripheral nervous system, you have your enteric nervous system, which is impacts your digestive system. So we have just to simplify it, really two main modes. You can be in the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight, or the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. Now, there's a common misconception that stress is bad. And I want to say that stress is not bad, stress is normal in moderation. So, stress can actually get us to grow and to get better at things and to get stronger. We need a little bit of that stress. We need challenges in order to get better and evolve. So that is a normal part of life. And it's not about eradicating stress. Now, when stress becomes chronic, then you can start and chronic for no major reason. Because the reason why we get into sympathetic, which is the fight or flight mode, which is typically what will happen when we're chronically stressed. will get more in that fight or flight mode, that mode is there in order to keep us safe. So
Mhm.
there is a subconscious belief or something that happens recurringly that causes us to feel unsafe, and that causes us to get into the fight or flight. When we don't feel safe, we get into fight or flight. What happens is typically that will move the blood to the limbs, so we can either use our arms to fight or legs to run, and we'll take it away. Really, it'll compromise the blood flow to the uterus, to the organs, to internal, like to even the brain. Haven't many of us can think about a time where we felt very emotional or very scared. You can't think, you can't form a sentence. You can't, your mind is not clear. And it's actually been studied. I was talking to my brother who went to school for business, and it was years ago, and I don't know if that he remembers the exact study, but there was a study that was done that showed that you can't make clear decisions when you're under very high stress. And so, of course, on the fertility journey, we need our minds to function. We need to make really important decisions that are make it or break it sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. And we also need the decision making to guide us to really uncovering things, mysteries, or reasons for why we're going through what we're going through. And when you're in the fight or flight mode, it's not helping anything. It's not helping your organs. It's not helping your body. It's competing with progesterone, which is a very important hormone. And here's the thing, we can really convince ourselves that we have to be in that mode when we're going through challenges in life in general. And we can convince ourselves that we can't feel safe until, and that is a common misconception. It's like a myth that we literally buy into as humans. And I'm saying as humans because it doesn't necessarily have to be fertility. It could be anything that we are wanting that we don't have. And we know that this is kind of like a very common human condition. And it's a common human condition because we kind of bought into that idea. We really believe that to be true. So feeling safe is really getting to this rest and digest mode. Feeling safe is going more in the parasympathetic. When you feel safe, you're able to sleep better. When you sleep better, you can restore your body. Your hormones can get into balance and more harmony. You're able to digest food better because it impacts your enteric nervous system, which is your digestive nervous system. Basically, it's got hundreds of millions of neurons that basically go from your mouth to your anus, and that's basically like the whole tract can really get impacted, which is one of the reasons why there's a very strong mind body or mind gut component, that your mind can impact your gut health. And as we know, the gut health is central to Chinese medicine too, but fertility health, because fertility health depends on the nutrients that we're absorbing correctly. And if we have gut issues, it can cause inflammation in the whole system. We know that can impact egg quality. It can impact um, uterine lining. It can impact our ability to absorb and sustain life. It can also impact autoimmune conditions. I mean, it's just like it trickles down to so many different things. So we know that getting into a restorative state is super important, and it's not about eradicating stress. So I think that's a common myth. You cannot eradicate stress. If you realize that that's just not true, and this is one of the reasons why it's so unhelpful to tell people to just relax, it doesn't work like that. It's about balancing, it's that yin and the yang, the overactivity to the rest, and combining the two. And I think that when that happens, that's when people feel best. They feel more safe, they feel more at ease. And another common misconception is I can't feel at ease so long as I'm going through this. And that is a common misconception. And it is a belief that we do truly take on.
And it's interesting because what you're talking about, there's so much science there. I absolutely love the science. And I know that you're very energy based as well. And I really get away from saying the word woo woo anymore. I'm not really not into that. I'm not going to use that.
Right, because it's kind of like you're saying that it is woo-woo and it's not.
It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
But even if we are talking about the energy, more spiritual side too, and the integration with the science, is that I believe in downloads that I've received in my perspective of this is that, our bodies, it's not only about our bodies physically. So talking about the science side of it being
Hmm.
ready as a vessel to hold these pregnancies, but also the souls that are incarnating in now, these spirit babies that are coming into our experience, really help to be able to elevate consciousness and really move the human race, the collective, to a higher vibrational frequency. That also, I talk with my clients a lot about this, that yes, our body, our vessel needs to be able to hold these pregnancies, but also your energy, your soul self needs to be able to keep up with the energy that's coming into your experience. So
100%.
yeah, I find it really interesting how
Yeah.
these integrate. And I'm really on a mission to really help people to not only understand the physical side, and I know that you are as well, Michelle, but also to understand the energetic side, their soul side of their fertility as well, and really being a parent, whether that's a mother or father. And really being able to be in alignment with it as a whole. And I think in fertility treatments, even in acupuncture, there's a lot of treatments out there that people are not looking at this other part. They're just looking at their physical part. I have a spirit guide of mine that talks a lot about, and really essentially spirit guides are just different versions of you,
Hmm.
that does talk a lot about that focus. So when you talk about, we can't, when our mind is all over the place and we're really in that fight or flight mode, we really can't think clearly. It's
Hmm.
also on a spiritual level, we can't get the downloads that we need.
100%. Yeah. Because it's like an antenna. So our nervous system is like an information machine. It basically moves information and frequencies like throughout your body, and it kind of like moves very fast. So your nervous system is like an antenna. It works to receive messages.
Mhm.
And when it's not, if it works chaotically, if it's very chaotic and it's not harmonized and it's not coherent, it's unable to receive that. And that's what you're talking about, all the things that you're talking about, the downloads. It's divine intelligence. It's the intelligence and lives in our body, but it's like beyond as well. And so we're able to like bridge that into our physical. So it's kind of like Chinese medicine. They see the physical, they see the emotional, they see the spiritual, and it's all one. So long as we're here, our bodies are the conduits of which we're receiving. Or it's that one place where it's able to flow into that physical space.
And this really brings us to something that I know you get really jazzed about, is the heart and mind connection. The heart is really the epicenter of really the connection with the physical self, with the soul self. I know that you really are into heart math, and if you could talk more about sharing that, and then I can kind of add in some spirit baby stuff as well, because I know that a lot of people that listen to this podcast are very into the spirit babies as well. And I have some more things I can add to what you're talking about. So, can you tell us more about that heart and mind connection, as well as how that relates to the method of heart math? I'm not super familiar with that, but it is something that has crossed my path, and I'd love
Mhm.
to hear more of your philosophy on that.
Yeah, so Heart Math Institute, basically they've created a device, and they also teach a lot and they do a lot of research. So they've seen heart rate variability, that is one of the things that they measure, which means basically it's your heart's ability to adapt and have variability, which shows that the higher the heart rate variability, the healthier the heart. And then they also look at the heart brain coherence. So there is a relationship between the heart and the brain that they're able to measure, and they're able to see that sometimes it works in harmony and like it's more coherent. Other times it's incoherent, a little bit more like chaotic. And when that happens, when it's coherent, you feel levels of peace, calm, you can think better, you can be more clear. So it's like interesting because we're talking about pretty much the same thing from different lenses. So what we're talking about, like really being safe and feeling connected, those kind of feelings will correspond to having a very coherent brain and heart. What I love about that is that Chinese medicine always talks about how the heart has such an important role in the mind. And it houses the mind. It actually holds the mind. And the heart electromagnetic the electromagnetic frequency of the heart is actually way larger than the brain's. So in some senses, the heart is more important. And also, they've done studies that show that the heart will respond quicker than the brain for intuitive perspective, almost like a person will feel the feelings of what they're about to see in a slide. So they'll check them physically and they'll see that their heart responds quicker than the brain. And there's like an intuitive like response before they actually see the image. So there's premonition kind of factors that happen, and it happens with the heart. So the heart's incredibly important. And it also has an important connection to the uterus. And so everything you think about, like how love is very life-giving, and it's true. Babies that are not given love early on can die. So love has a very important factor, very often or overlooked because it's not something that people can measure or see. It's something that can be felt. But what's cool is the two vessels that connect to the uterus is the baomai, which is the heart uterus connection, but then also the baoluo, which is going to the kidneys, which is fear. So one of the emotions is fear for the kidneys when it's imbalanced. And again, so that kind of takes you to the nervous system aspect of it of feeling safe. So you're able to reproduce and be creative and have the physical creativity of the body. It's really fascinating stuff.
And it's interesting because I've had a couple of conversations about the Baomai recently, and I talk a lot about that with my clients, just because we're not taught that there's that connection, especially if we're just thinking of fertility. I mean, obviously we're talking about fertility, we're talking about more than fertility too, because everything is connected. But the heart and the uterus are connected. And
Yep.
so the fact that, we're not taught that, people you see this all the time, Michelle, with people going through fertility treatments or have been trying for a long time and have unexplained infertility. Not a huge fan of the word infertility, but
I know, me too. Same page.
um, but why is that not brought to people's attention? It's not taught. We're not taught this. Before we get on before we started recording today, you and I were talking about we're not taught in school. We're not taught certain things in our society. It's unfortunate because it keeps us away from our truth and who we really are. And I heard someone say this the other day. I really liked this. It says that your mind is part of your body. So why in the heck do we not consider our mindsets or what we're thinking about or what we're connecting to?
Mhm.
Because it is part of our body. So of course it's
Right. It's where our
of our
hormones get
body.
triggered to impact the
Yes.
body.
Yes.
We have to think before we raise our arm. It comes from the brain.
Yes, absolutely. And I often find it interesting if we just talk about addictions. We can see infertility, we can see addictions like addiction to being perfect, or addiction to trying to do everything right, or addiction to research all the time, and these common patterns that we can see. And I had a client recently I was having a conversation with about addiction. Addiction really is being so tied to the physical body. You're not
Hmm.
getting yourself out of the physical body and getting yourself into that higher version of you. So I call it the higher mind, the soul self. And so how
Hmm.
do we really do that? Well, first thing is we have to start surrendering and trusting
Hmm.
in something greater. The heart is connected to all of that. And no matter what, has nothing to do with religion, but when I see the image of Christ with the heart on the chest, I'm always thinking about that's where the soul is. It's not about religion. It's that is a message to me and a metaphor that's where the soul is, the sacred heart. That's where it connects. I call it the epicenter of connecting with the physical body, with the soul self. Your heart is you have to have an open heart to be able to
Hmm.
receive into the uterus,
Yeah, 100%.
receive new life.
Right, because your heart opens you, like literally opens the uterus
Right. Absolutely.
in Chinese medicine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. If you think about what you're doing, like, how could you, ooh, this is a good one. This is going to help people. If you think about, and this might be a big question, but I know you can answer it. What is your mission? Like, what is your mission in helping just the greater collective, but also the fertility community?
My mission, and it's a very easy one actually, is to awaken the power of everybody that I work with. I want people to know that they're powerful. It drives me crazy when people think small, and I'm not talking about the people I work with, my people in my family, or you know what I mean? Like, if
Right.
it's like people that I'm close with, that I'm like, what? Like, you got to think bigger than that, you know? And I think that that's what it is. We get so lost in the details, and you were talking about really getting into the details. It's more of a left brain response. We're analytical. We get lost in the details, the numbers, the this, the that, and kind of getting out of it and seeing that, wow, we're a lot more grand than we think we are. And my mission is to reflect that you have power. Like, you are a creator. You're able to get into that state of creation. I think that when people realize just how powerful they are, first of all, a level of peace comes over them. You know, you can be open to more ease, and also knowing that you, by being powerful, what I mean is you're connecting to a power that's greater than us, than our physical bodies.
Yeah. And what would be a way that you might, maybe a technique or some sort of advice for someone listening to this that they could get into their power? Like, what would you tell a client, maybe?
That's actually a really good question. One of the biggest ways I say is, if you can, meditation. And sometimes I'll get the answer, meditation isn't for me. I've tried it. I say stick with it, because what happens is, whenever we're about to evolve, or whenever we're about to get to that next level of awareness and openness, we will always be met with some difficulty. And so when we stop at that difficulty, we're not letting ourselves grow. We're responding to kind of our left brain analytics. We're responding to that. We're responding to our limits, and we're making them more real. And you know, and then we kind of like take that as fact. And so it's always important to question your thoughts and not to believe everything you think. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's kind of what the Buddhists and meditators have been talking about forever. And really allowing ourselves to be in that state of receivership when we're in meditation, of listening to our bodies, sensations. And sometimes, if we do get in really discomfort states when we're meditating, getting into your body is one really great antidote for, like, where am I feeling this feeling, and kind of easing into it and giving yourself almost that nurturing response, rather than kind of forcing yourself to stop thinking and things like that. So when you're getting into the state of receiving, you're able to connect, like you said, you know, get those downloads and connect to that higher intelligence, which always has the answers. Like, you have those answers innately. Like, you were born with that ability. And I mean, there's no coincidence that there's so many stories of people and Buddhists and, you know, meditators that have reached incredible heights, and, you know, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and there's like amazing miracles that have happened. It usually comes when we are connecting within. And a lot of we're talking about the book, The Way of Fertility. A lot of what I talk about is how the ancients have always told us to turn inward to get the answers, not outward. And yes, outward has its place, but when we turn inward, that's when we get the true guidance. And even the inward can guide us outward as well.
And your book is absolutely wonderful. And for anyone that
Thank
is
you.
interested, we definitely wanted to bring that up today that Michelle does have a book. She just mentioned it, and definitely let her talk a little bit about that because it definitely is going to share all of her wisdom as well as techniques and really be able to help you on your fertility journey. And she also does offer your first free chapter that you can
Mhm.
get a download of that.
Yeah, so basically, after doing this for a long time, doing acupuncture in the world of fertility, and also like the Chinese medicine and my own things that I've learned, and really understanding like the state of flow and all of the things that I wanted to tell every single patient, but there was just so much. I put it into a book.
I love it.
And it really comes down to connecting with nature, and like how nature has that intelligent design that immediately our bodies synchronize with, and how it's important to do that for the menstrual cycle. I mean, there's so many things, and we're also sensitive to light and our circadian rhythm. So it's really like a book describing kind of our connection with our surroundings, our connections to our bodies, and how to really tap into that intelligence that we have and the nature around us has. And Chinese medicine's based on that. Like, it's based on the elements in nature and how going within really aligns us with that. So I talk about how to get into the state of trust when you're on the fertility journey, which I know is very difficult. However, it's going to not only make you feel better, but it's also going to probably improve your chances of conceiving. It's kind of like the a double, gift that we don't realize, but you can actually also go through the fertility journey with less suffering. And I think that that's, again, one of those myths that we believe that, having to go through it by nature is suffering. Now, there's a difference between going through moments of pain, just like there's a difference between going through moments of stress and then having that be chronic. It's two different things. So we're able to kind of ebb and flow and, yes, go through the pain and acknowledge it, but also shift back and also invite joy. And I talk about that, and also heart opening. I mean, the list goes on. I'm probably like missing a couple of things now, but it's just so important to really like come back to yourself.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's like I already stated, I said this earlier, that it is unfortunate that for someone that might be experiencing IVF, going through IVF, that there just really isn't this extra connection that is really does increase the success rates. And they've
Hmm.
actually done studies where
Hmm.
they've found that people that do engage in the therapies like what we offer and some of the stuff in your book too, that it increases the chances of success rates by over 50% if people
Hmm.
follow these.
Even laughter therapy after transfers. Like, so think about if laughter therapy can significantly increase chances of transfers sticking. What does that tell you about bringing that element of joy? So then I say, just watch comedies. If you're on the fertility journey, you should watch comedies because
Yeah.
it'll help, if nothing else, take the edge off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to state too, and I just for people listening, I want to educate that's part of my mission, like you, Michelle, is educating is that if you are going through fertility treatments, definitely make sure that, try to incorporate some of these things way before your transfer, or if you
Hmm.
are going to be going through egg retrievals, definitely try to do some of these like acupuncture. I'm not a huge fan of people just getting acupuncture on a transfer just before the retrieval.
Right. Not doing anything before, of
No.
course.
No,
Yeah.
it's or people will reach out to me and they want a womb healing session and they've got all this stress and all this extra stuff, this central nervous system, things are knotted up and things are not going well and they want you to just fix it in one session. It doesn't work like that. And it doesn't work with that way with acupuncture either. And so if you are
Hmm.
someone that is listening to Michelle and I in this conversation today, definitely make sure, and I'm sure that I'm guessing that Michelle would agree with this, it's something that it doesn't generally happen overnight because we didn't get here overnight. So we really have to
Hmm.
peel back the layers. And if you really do want to have success in your fertility, it does take it's going to take some investment. It's going to take some
Hmm.
energy investment.
Absolutely.
And so this whole idea of that I'm just going to do one session and it's going to work for me. We
Hmm.
have to be honest. It generally is not that way. Don't want you to think acupuncture doesn't work or mind
Yeah.
therapy doesn't work, meditation doesn't work. You have to be
Hmm.
patient on your journey and with yourself. I think the biggest thing is giving yourself grace and patience because healing can be it's definitely a process. I know it didn't take me overnight, and I know it didn't do Michelle
Absolutely. It's like
either.
still working, and I'll tell you, like, it's like trying to plant a garden in a day.
Right.
No, you have to nurture it. You have to feed it. You have to, bring it water. You have to give it the right environment, and you have to constantly give it attention. And then eventually you will see that seed sprout. But you cannot just be like, okay, well, I'm going to put a seed and forget about it completely. It's just like, let's make it happen. It doesn't work like that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely you have to invest in the whole thing with fertility is the reason my whole philosophy is that a fertility journey is happening to help you to awaken to bigger version of you.
Well,
And
that's the
so
big picture.
that's
Yeah.
the big picture.
Yep.
Absolutely. I tell people that the first thing we got to get rid of is comparing your journey to someone else's.
Mhm.
because your journey is completely different. And on a soul level and as a spirit baby medium, that we often messages I get from spirit babies is about self-love, learning about what you came here for, awakening that. And then
Mhm.
they're going to come into your experience after that has happened. So it's not a punishment. It's just the way that you, as on a soul level, designed your journey to be. And so we cannot compare our lives to others. And I know that that can be really challenging for someone that is experiencing fertility obstacles and maybe has been on it for a while, that it can be very emotionally, physically, energetic, challenging. But we have to do it. There's no other way
Mhm.
than to not compare ourselves to other people. Just overall is the bigger picture. So, just real quick, I'm interested to know, how did you get into this? Like, how did you get into fertility and the mindset work, the consciousness work, and really where in acupuncture, of course, Eastern medicine, we both have a connection there as both acupuncturists and doctors of Chinese medicine. How did you get into this?
So my background was actually I was doing architecture and I had irregular periods and I was, the constant back and forth of like get on the birth control pill for like 12 years and I finally found an acupuncturist. He resolved my issues and then I ended up getting regular periods, which is like I have never had in my life. It was like 12 years of irregular periods. So I thought that that would be like my life forever because based on my history, shouldn't that predict my future? And that's typically a lot of things that I tell my patients. Just because you haven't gotten pregnant yet doesn't mean you're not going to. Like your past doesn't necessarily predict your future if you're making changes and doing things differently. And that's really what I did. And so that really floored me because I've never had anything like that happen. And during that time, I also started feeling better in so many other ways. I felt like my energy was aligning and then my life was aligning. And I had met my husband and my future husband at the time. And then I also read a book even before meeting him, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. And I started getting into all of that and meditating and it was just like kind of like introduced itself to me where I was aligned and ready to receive it, and I think that that was more of what it was. I became aligned and ready to receive it, and I got the messages, and one of the messages is this is going to be really hard, but you're going to have to change your career. So I have to go back to my parents who just recently put so much money towards my school, and I was only out of school like 5 years. I was like not really happy doing that. And I was like, wow, this is going to be, so it's one of those things. Sometimes, like when you become aligned spiritually, sometimes you have to make difficult decisions in order to truly honor your soul. And I knew that that was something that I had to do. And I felt like a calling. It was just like, I have to do this because it wasn't about me. It was about everybody else that I was going to help in the future. And that was what it was like, almost like all their spirit guides and all their, energies were pulling me. And I was like, but I loved it too. So it was like alignment in all ways. So I've always been more spiritual on the spiritual side. I've always had prophetic dreams. I've had a prophetic dream about 9/11. It's a whole other rabbit hole. I saw it happen. Um, Weird things have happened to me like that. I've had prophetic dreams. I've had dreams of people like friends of people who have deceased have come to me and told me messages and I relayed them and it was like very strange. So when I have dreams now, I almost, as random as they are, I almost have to tell them because I'm like, I don't know what this means, but here goes. I just want you to know this. I don't know if it means anything or not, but like this is what it is. It was kind of like a message I got. So I've always been on that spiritual side, but for me, it wasn't just like spiritual, like I just believe. I actually experienced it and felt it firsthand. And I think that that's typically what happens if you acknowledge the reality of it existing. The more you make it real, the more it comes into your life, and the more you're connected to that divine intelligence. It's almost like a person that does something and you finally like the person who acknowledges that person that most people dismiss, that person will talk to you more and connect with you more. It's kind of like whatever you acknowledge will come to you. And I think that there's something to that. I think the same thing happens with spirit babies. Like it's that acknowledgement of making it real. and like really making that connection and saying, hey, I'm here to receive your message. I'm listening. Then you'll get communication.
And I just have to say, Michelle, that, I'm just noticing your eyes. I read people's eyes, and
Mhm.
you have this sparkle in your eyes, and it does not matter what color eyes you have. It's
Mhm.
just this energy that you can see. And no one is ever better than anyone when I say this, just stating this
Mhm.
for those listening but there are souls that are moving around in this experience that are masters that are doing master level work. And you have the eyes of the master soul. And so
Oh, that means a
really,
lot. Thank
yes,
you.
yes, absolutely. And really what that means is that you in your soul DNA, you've been coded for higher level work, and you're here to awaken people. And I am absolutely on the same path as you, and
Mhm.
it can be very confusing. So when you said that I had to change my whole entire career, and that it
Mhm.
hasn't exactly been an easy road, because I've been learning things and working against a very dark system. We're in a very dark, there's always light, but as far as the being in this 3D reality, we are in an experience that is it's not
It
always
pulls you. It pulls
everything.
you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying. There's a gravity. I don't know if you've ever heard of reality transurfing. It's a really interesting book by a
Mhm.
quantum physicist, and
Yes.
he talks about pendulums. And so that pendulum, like the push is kind of like the collective consciousness, and sometimes it's dark, and it will pull you, and sometimes you have to kind of like pull away from that gravity and shift a different course. And it was very hard to do. I got a lot of opinions thrown at me from family members, like, what are you doing with your life? Like, really, you're gonna like leave this career and all this stuff, so you have to go through those challenges. And of course, my soul, I was very sensitive to people's opinions. I always wanted to please. And so it was kind of like it gave me exactly what I needed. Like the hardest thing for me to deal with, the thing that I was the most sensitive to. And I say this because I know that the fertility journey could be the same. It's always something like that is the most sensitive, the most vulnerable, the most difficult that sometimes life will throw at us. And walking through that on the other side of that is actually gold. It's kind of like an interesting thing. Like, and I talked about that even with meditation. When you get those disturbances coming at you, and your mind's trying to push you away from moving on to the next level, to kind of going through these obstacles. When you go to the other side, and Dr. Joe Dispenza always talks about that, crossing that. Once you cross that, the most difficult things, if you can just stick with it, you'll get over on the other side and you'll get gifts. It's incredible.
You're so right. You're so right. And it's interesting because people will live an entire lifetime living what they're not, because it's uncomfortable for a short period of time compared to a
Correct.
lifetime of changing, or of living in your alignment with your truth, with your soul's purpose. And well, that's more uncomfortable to them to just do the work and
Hmm.
put up with maybe people saying things or getting over those sort of energy blocks. And but then being 85, 90 years old, or whatever, how old people live, if they make it that far, which hopefully people make it that far.
Hmm.
And then they're regretful that they didn't really do what they
Yeah.
wanted to do. So we have to listen to those inner nudges. And that's really what we're here for, as helping people advance to those higher levels within
Hmm.
themselves. Like you said, everything is within, it's not outside of you. Fertility journey can be that way as well, because it's a constant, well, what should I do? What does so and so want me to do? Or the people pleasing. I talked to
Hmm.
an interview with someone I did the other day, that she also is an acupuncturist, and was talking about how the people pleasing, that
Hmm.
she's done work with certain clients that have had success in their fertility journey. When they stopped people pleasing, they just stopped doing that, and that allowed them to step into their truth and into their freedom, and their whole entire life got better. Of course, they got the baby, but their
Hmm.
whole entire life got better when they started living for themselves. And we're taught at such a young age that Well, you got to think about everybody else first.
Like fit in this box, stay in this box. And the statement that comes to mind that I say to everybody, just bet on yourself. Put the bet on yourself and believe it and just do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because you're only here for so long. I mean, time
Yep.
really is an illusion, but the body does belong to the earth. You are going to transition out of the body and you never die. You know that. We both
Yep.
know that.
Yeah.
But you are going to transition out of this experience. So everybody that's on this earth is very, very lucky because their souls lined up that are waiting to get into bodies, to have
Mhm.
this 3D reality. And so we have to I mean, we don't have to. You get to choose.
Mhm.
But anyone listening to this advice, follow your intuition, follow your passions, follow what you really want to do, even if it doesn't make sense. And the same
Mhm.
thing is with your fertility journey. Even if it doesn't make sense, say that you come across a book or a healer or somebody that you're like, well, how is that going to help my fertility journey? Well, you asked and the universe delivered. And we
Mhm.
don't always realize consciously that we're asking for things. We ask for things on a subconscious level as well. And
Mhm.
I know I'm speaking to your camp here. So I love this, Michelle. I know that you have so many wonderful resources for people. And I know that you have a fertility program. Do you want to talk more about that? I'd love for you to share with the listeners about how they can find you and also about your program and your resources.
Sure. So they can find me on michelleoravitz.com and you can find everything. You can find my Instagram where I have free resources, my podcast where it's like tons of free content and resources, including Lindsay, who's been on my podcast. So check out her episode. And also I do have programs, different programs. So the easiest way to look it up is go to Work with Michelle, and then you can see what I do virtually, and you can get all the different options there. And then you can also get, if you go in my website, there's a I guess like a section for my book. And then there you can get that first free chapter.
That's amazing. And then you also have a fertility program. Is that virtual? Do you work one-on-one with clients as well?
Correct. So I do virtual and I do a virtual one-on-one, in-person one-on-one, and then I also have an online course. And sometimes it's open, sometimes it's on waitlist.
Well, I love that so much. And I will link all that in the show notes so that people can easily find you. And then, Michelle, do you have any final little last words or advice, inspirations that you'd like to share with the listeners?
I'm just sending you guys so much love. I really, from all of my heart, I'm sending you energetically so much love. And I just want you to also send yourself love and really connect to that heart space as much as you can. Do things that make you happy. Like go back to doing that. It's okay, like to do that, even if like other days are hard. Balance it out with the joy. Like do things that used to make you happy before you went on this journey. That's what I would definitely say.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle. That's absolutely incredible, beautiful, and it's been wonderful to have you on Fertile Frequencies today. And I thank you so much for coming and sharing this beautiful energy with us today.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, for having me today. And it's always a pleasure talking to you.